Okay, so
Yes.
step five, circling back to the 6 things before you go out on your own and having the business plan, benchmarks, creating your story, uh, now working the outreach, and now it's coming down to intake, the needs analysis. Talk to me in detail about the intake.
I think the intake, it's almost hard to just without doing its own whole hangout or doing a role play through it to see, because the intake is the beginning of your entire relationship, and if you do it right, it's an easy sale. If you do it wrong, then it's a hard sale, and you're going to be chasing people. And the secret to that is the kind of questions that you ask. That is the entire secret of your intake. So let me give a little bit of mechanics so that you can, anybody listening to this can play with the mechanics of it, and use your own questions. Okay. Um, Going back to our role play, if you had said, yeah, like that sounds great, I'd like to do that, I would have said, so Josh, here's what I want to do next. Well, let's do this. Before you leave tonight, in fact, let's right now, I mean, do you keep your calendar on your phone? I mean, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. Great.
Okay, so we're at the wine tasting
Yeah.
event that you held. Okay.
Yeah, let's say if you are interested in it right then, I'm not gonna say, hey, well, let's, why don't I call you later this week and we'll schedule something. Like, you're thinking about it now and you're most interested in it when? Now. I'm making my best impression for you right now. So I'll be like, look, Josh, let's do this. Like, let's just schedule it. What do you have time, like this Friday, or let's do next Friday? I usually find about 7 days is good for people to have time to, because I'm going to send you some questions between now and when we actually meet. And I want you to fill out your answers to my questions, and then I want you to send those questions back to me at least 24 hours before we meet so that I can prepare for our meeting. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
let's just book that. Do you want to do that next Friday? And then you'd be like, yeah, next Friday,
Yep.
great. So now we've set it, right? I've set the thing is set. Now my job is to email you the questions, and I do my questions in a Word document. And you go to, if you're using Microsoft Word, you go to the far right on the top and it says review, and you click that and you turn on track changes, and then when I send it to them, when they type in their answers, it comes out in a different color font. So now I can see theirs. Then when I go through their answers, sitting at my computer, nobody's around me, I'm just looking at their answers, I'm asking myself follow-up questions. So let's say you're going to have a section of questions that deals with their workout history. And one of your questions might be something like, where do you seem to fall off the wagon with exercise? And you type in similar to what you said at the wine party. You say, I get too busy, and then the family thing happens and all that. So I'm reading your answer, and I think to myself, yeah, but why does that happen? Why can't Josh stand up for his own time? And I start thinking, is this a codependent thing? Is this about feeling worthy as a dad? Is this just bad planning? And I don't know if any of these are what's happening, but they all give me like cause for wanting to find out what's really going on. So I type out my question, like, why do you think that happens? And what's really going on? And and then I save it, right? And that's my little reminder. When I talk to you on Friday on the phone, I like to do mine on the phone. Even if the person's in town, I like to do it on the phone, because in person there's a lot of distraction that happens. So on the phone I stay pretty focused. That's just me.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to give mechanics here. So once I have my follow-up question, when we're on the phone and I get to that question, I'm now going to ask you, so Josh, you said that family and you get busy and all this stuff gets in the way. So I'm trying to figure out what's really going on there. Can you talk me through that? And on the phone, you're going to be like, well, sometimes I do this and I don't, and then I'm just going to have a conversation with you. So this is what makes this work, because I'm starting to address what's under the surface, what continually causes you to not follow through. I'm going to go to work on.
Mm-hmm. I could see how the intake alone is therapeutic. Just
Yeah.
the intake process, just filling out ballpark about how many questions would be involved in the intake Word document that you send them.
My question, I have 119 questions in mine. Mine deals with business people. So, and I say like, look, Josh, it's 119 questions. It covers 13 areas of your business, and when you're done, you know, I'm going to have a good sense of where we need to go next. If
Gotcha.
you're doing trainer questions, you could do 40, 50, 60 questions.
I see. So 50. So you said so after this wine tasting event, you send me a 50 question that's making me dig deep and sort
Yep.
of discover and pinpoint my hangups and my journey and my goals.
Yep.
Just me answering the questions alone is going to be value because
Yep.
nobody ever thinks through those questions. And then to
Nope.
have a follow-up 60 minutes with you to help me even reveal more, I could see how, and we already have the common ground of wine or whatever that is for each
That's
person.
right. That's
And
right.
so,
Yeah.
and this is all this value and discovery before we even do any business together. And so, gosh, man, I just have to say this because I'm getting excited. All we need is 36. Is that right?
36. Yeah. We need, based on our economic model, my whiteboard over there, we needed 72 intakes for 50% of them to say, yes, I'll pay you 250 or 500 bucks a month for you to get me where I want to go.
Gotcha. So if our niche is wine, and we're throwing these wine tasting parties, and we have friends bringing friends, all we need is 72 of these conversations.
Yep.
That fires me up.
Right? And you could make 100 grand. I mean, assuming that your economic stays, assuming that you have retention of a year or more, because we're assuming that our $3,000 per client, right, that's per year. That's what we're going to get per client per year. That's assuming you retain them for a year. But see, that's the thing about this intake. So this just brings me back to the intake. If you do this intake right, it sets up retention from the beginning.
Yes.
If you don't do this right, you are almost guaranteed to have a revolving door in your business.
Gotcha. And the intake is what creates your value.
Yes. And it's also what gives me a sense of where we're going to have to go to work, right? What our challenges are, what your hurdles are, what your strengths and weaknesses are. Like, it sets it all up. And there should be like a 3-day course just on this. Like, look, if any of you want help on this, leave comments below, and just tell me you want help with the intake so I can follow up with you, because this is how I've made my living. I've made my living on the intake.
Mm-hmm. I could so see it. And this circles back to the live webinar that we did was with my previous personal trainer. Literally, if you want to call it an intake, Chris, he had my application, flipped it over on the back, and just started off with some initial measurements and asked me what I wanted to achieve. And then he's like, okay, let's go hit the weights.
Yep. Right? Dude, that is so common. And sometimes they'll just, like you said, like the intake is like you show up and they pull out a clipboard and they're like, okay, well, what are your goals and what are this and what are that? And so there is no like you have some quiet time to think about some in-depth questions, and then I have time to think about those and then ask some follow-up questions. None of that happens. It's just, what do you want to do? I want to do this. What do you want to do? I want to do this. Great. And now it's awkward if I'm going to dig any deeper because we just met, and now let's go hit some weights. You're guaranteed to have a revolving door in your business if that's your intake strategy. But the good news is you do this right. It doesn't take a lot of genius. It just takes some systems, right? It just takes some mechanics of setting this up right. And once you set it up right, then the process does the heavy lifting. That's what I love about this. It's the process that does the heavy lifting. There's no selling involved.
Right.
But by the time you're done with the intake, they will either want to do it or not want to do it. And either one is fine, should be fine with you, because we've factored in 50% of people choosing not to do it with you. In our economic model, we've already factored or accounted for 50% of the people you have this conversation with will not sign up with you.
So they answer the 50 questions, they send it back, you type notes for more underlying questions, and then you have your 60-minute phone conversation.
Yes. While I'm doing that conversation, I have my headset on like this, and I'm talking to them on the phone, and I'm typing my thoughts. I'm typing any other questions. I'm typing anything that they say that I think I want to capture. And then when I'm all done, and then by the way, I don't like, because I'll type a lot of follow-up questions, but when I'm actually talking to them on the phone, I won't necessarily hit every follow-up question. I will go where the juicy stuff is. So if I'm like, okay, I got enough there, let me go to the next question. No, I actually don't need to ask that question. Let me go to the next question. All right, let me ask this one. What about that? Yeah, but you said this, but what about that? And so I'll just keep going down the different rabbit holes I want to go down until I feel like here's the end result. I'm looking for, one, do I have a sense of what they need in terms of a program or a solution? Two, do I have a sense of where their limits are? Where do they sabotage themselves? Because I need to deal with that moving forward. The other thing that's cool about asking these kinds of follow-up questions and going down these rabbit holes of digging with them is that it starts to condition the relationship for you to push them in a healthy way, right? To say, dude, Josh, like you said you wanted to do this, but for the last two weeks you haven't really shown up. You haven't done the work. Like, what's going on? See, I can ask that once we start working together because I conditioned that relationship that way in the intake. I set it up that way. I created that natural pattern. I created that pattern to feel natural in the intake by asking these kinds of questions already before we ever decide to work together. So when we decide to work together, it's already natural for me to have that kind of interaction with you. Right? I remember your comment last time was, you know, if you're a trainer who just flipped over the back of his paper and asked you what you want to do, let's go hit some weights, if he had tried to push you in a certain way, it would have been like, go to hell, dude. I don't need to talk to you.
Right.
Spot me on this next lift, dude. Let me lift my weights.
Yeah. Our relationship didn't start there, and you know, who gave you the right to go there?
That's
right.
And
so your intake is earning that right.
Good point. That's right. That's the point. That's great, Josh. Thank you. That is the point from last time, which is you are earning the right to speak this way. You're earning the right to speak into their life, having this type of an intake.
Got it. Sounds to me like we need to do a whole session on intake. This is great. Hey, and you know what? Forget about the time. This is just such good stuff, right?
Maybe I'll break these into like smaller. Each one of these can be like a mini episode of the bigger episode.
Without a doubt.
I think maybe there's some good stuff in like the. I think people. I'm feeling like this is pretty concrete. Like I'm trying to be pretty concrete about some of this. I think maybe if we did an episode for each of some of these things, it would be like, okay, let's really break it down into like, let me show you the questions of an intake and like actually diving into some of that maybe.
Because going through it like this it's really, well, you know what? It's getting the point across, you know, where you need that future coaching.
I think that's the difficulty of this type of a format sometimes is it's without people here and interacting, which is why you should leave comments down below. It makes it, you know, we're doing our best to give what needs to be out there to give the framework of this approach. And then there's all the details underneath. And by the way, let me just shamelessly plug right now the program that that I put together called 9 Strong, which is basically scholarshiping 9 trainers that want to grow their business and that connect with the approach that I have. If you want me to take you under my wing, so to speak, and help you launch your business, then this program is for you, right? You'd go to 9strong.com. I wasn't going to plug that, Josh. I wasn't going to plug it, but it just seems so appropriate right now. Like the content in this is really good content, and there's some people that got to be like, dude, I totally get the whole flow from business planning to intake to, you know, starting my business. Like this whole flow makes sense. So I have to say, like, those that this is resonating with, you got to go to 9strong, the number 9strong.com, and then you'll see the place to learn more about it. So.
Yeah, sure. And it's certainly not for everybody, right? The people that want to follow the excitement and the passion and shoot from the hip, then so be it.
Nice. Right. Yes. If you want to shoot from the hip, this is not for you. Right. That's right.